Today's show was brought to you by Queensryche.
Live on the Metal Voice. What the heck is going on? You leave your computer for 2 minutes, you come back to your computer and boom, bam, blood in, blood out. Rob Duke's in, Zetro out. What the heck is going on here, guys? Look at this. Big news. I'll read the announcement right off the bat. Exodus have this is the official announcement, by the way, on Exodus's social media announcement. Exodus have parted ways with Steve Zetro Souza. We thank Steve for his years fronting the band and all the killer music we made during that time. We wish him only the best in the future and much success with everything he does. And please help us welcome Rob Dukes back to Exodus. We are beyond stoked to have Rob back ripping up the stage with us, and he's looking forward to crushing everything like only he can. Next chapter begins. New record rolls along as planned, and the beatings will continue. See you soon, Exodus. That's it.
And
We're
it's
done.
not April 1st.
Yeah.
Strange enough, Jack, a lot of people thought it was fake news. Perrin, 10 seconds. Like, first thing you saw that, what did you have to like second guess yourself or second guess what you're reading?
I did a double take, and only because I saw the band's most recent tour like less than 2 months ago in November. And, you know, you and I have been around bands, and Jack has been around bands too. And I have a pretty good nose for when people aren't getting along or when there's something amiss. And whether it was just interaction on stage or anything I might have seen behind the scenes, I had zero indication that there was anything wrong 2 months ago when I saw them on tour. So, yeah, I was pretty floored when I saw that press release this morning.
Jack, initial reaction, you see it. Or maybe you didn't know about it until we started the show today. I don't know. But what was your impressions? How do you feel at the moment?
Say shout out to Jim Harrison. I saw him post about it, and I thought it was a joke. I thought like it's got to be a prank. But yeah, my initial reaction was good for Rob Dukes. I Rich Catino and I got a chance to interview him through Melody Myers a couple of years ago, and I really enjoyed talking to him. It was during lockdown, so I really enjoyed talking to him. He's a cool guy. He's got a lot of good ideas, a lot of good stuff to say. So that was my initial thought. Was good for him. But yeah, I was shocked. This is the kind of thing like Bruce is like it'd be almost like for Exodus fans, they do the equivalent of for Maiden fans. Like, yeah, Bruce is leaving and Bailey's back. Blaze Bailey's back. Like it's almost on that kind of level. Like it's a complete shock.
That's a very interesting point, Jack, because even though Rob, his time in the band, there's a core of people who love that stuff, but Zetro has always been more of the mainstream sort of singer that people associate Exodus with. Perrin, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I lived in the Bay Area for a good amount of time, and I have a really big affinity for Exodus. And outside of the Bay Area, I don't know if there's a ton of people, but I've seen the band with Bailoff. I've seen the band with Zetro a lot. I've seen the band of Rob Dukes. I saw the band of Steve Esquivel from Skin Lab. I saw Zetro fronting Legacy in San Francisco. I saw Steve Esquivel fronting Skin Lab. I've kind of seen pretty much every permutation you could see of Exodus. So, and, it's a controversial take sometimes, but I've always felt that Steve Zetro Souza is the voice of Exodus. And a lot of people would be like, no, Bailoff, but Steve was a really good replacement for Paul Bailoff because they had that kind of same shrill voice, and the musical direction continued from Bailoff to Steve, and there was good continuity there. And then I think when Rob came on board, I think the band changed. I think it was a little less thrashy and more kind of just blunt, in-your-face, heavy. Still thrash, but kind of a different orientation. And then, we get Steve back, and we get back to more of that classic Exodus sound. So, yeah, I mean, my take is I always felt that Steve was the quintessential Exodus singer. So whenever you take the quintessential singer out of a lineup, like I thought Rat was great with Jizzy Pearl, but it just wasn't the quintessential lineup. And we can go on and on about, many hard rock and heavy metal bands with who changed singers. And it's not to say the material with Rob wasn't good, but it was different. And I think a certain percentage of the fan base embraced it, but I think a certain percentage of the fan base maybe didn't reject it, but didn't really embrace it as much. And I think it showed in sales numbers and concert attendance and where they were on the bill on festivals and their ability to get opening slots and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think Steve is the man for the job.
Okay, yeah. So you mean your favorite of the three is Steve, bottom line. Jack, before I ask you a question, I just want to ask everybody who's watching the show, three main singers of Exodus, Paul Bailoff, Zetro, and Rob Dukes. Which is your favorite era? I'm asking everybody out there. You could type in your favorite era, your favorite album, your favorite voice. But Jack, from the three, I mean, how would you rank them? Like, and again, I don't mean it like one's better than the other. I just mean it like your personal opinion. Did you like this guy over that guy?
I mean, I go a little bit of what Parents said, although I can never compete with Parents' concert history. Holy crap! My first Exodus also was Fabulous Disaster. That's where I discovered them. Probably, and a lot of us discovered them, the Toxic Waltz and Lowrider even. But so Zetro is my that to me is, I agree that he's the definitive sound. When I think of Exodus, that I hear also Zetro has such a distinctive snarl. Like he's just got such a classic, like just bad, like kind of attitude, like sarcastic snarl to his voice. Rob Dukes is a very powerful singer. He's got a really powerful roar, but he doesn't have the distinctive qualities. I mean, Bailoff, and Zetro had some commonality, but Zetro, he's really got that distinctive. Which actually, it's funny. His son, who fronts Hatred, sounds like him. But that's my long and short answer. Yeah, I think Zetro. That to me is the sound of Exodus. Right. Even on the one where he came back, and on that album.
Just to give you guys a quick timeline, 1981, Tom Hunting was a singer and the drummer. 85, Bonded by Blood, Paul Bailoff. 1986, Paul Bailoff gets fired. Right? Steve Zetro comes in. Pleasures of the Flesh, live album, Fabulous Disaster, 1989 with the single Toxic Waltz, which was sort of a minor hit, I guess, on TV. 1993, Impact is Imminent. 1991, Objection Overruled. 1992, Force of Habit. The band splits up. They return back with Bailoff. So Zetro's out, Bailoff is back in, right? Then a few years down the line, Bailoff dies. Then what happens? Zetro's back in. Temple of the Damned. Then Dukes was the guitar tech for the band. He asked to audition. They go, hey, why not? So he comes on board for a few years. Up to 2014, Dukes is somehow dismissed unfavorably, I would say. Maybe, I guess, according to what we've read online. We don't know the true story. And Zetro's back in for what? Was it 1, 2? Blood In, Blood Out?
2. Blood In, Blood Out, and Persona Non Grata.
And now here we are. Dukes is back in. Will Zetro come back again? Jack, you've spoken to Dukes. Why did he get the job originally?
It's interesting, well, when I spoke with him right around the same time he was promoting. He and Zetro did a 2.5-hour conversation, which is out on YouTube, by the way. You can watch it. I was on Zetro's Toxic Vault. So I talked to him about that. Rich and I talked to him about that. The story as he told it was basically that, kind of like you said, he was the guitar tech. He went to LA. He said he had no real interest in joining a band. He went to LA and just trying to figure out his life and became the guitar tech. He was on tour with Megadeth and Exodus, and when the Steve from Skin Lab was there. He said he just went up on stage and did one song, and in his words, he butchered one song with the guys, and but they heard something, and then he said that the confidence was there, and they invited him back to audition. But I remember him kind of saying that he felt like he was just the easy choice. They didn't want to go through the effort of auditioning singers and trying to find somebody new who fit. They were just like, you just get the job. And he felt like, like he just got it by default. That's how I remember him saying it, in the interview with me and when he talked to Zetro himself about it.
Perrin,
I was going to add.
I want you to add to that. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so Steve Esquivel was always going to be temporary. So when like they released Temple of the Damned to critical acclaim, I mean that album was really critically acclaimed, and it was a big disappointment to a lot of people when after a little bit of touring, Zetro couldn't do anymore, and his family was a lot younger then, and he had responsibilities and actually a really good job in the Bay Area, and he just couldn't commit to the touring. And so Steve, when he joined, was always going to be temporary. It was just for a leg of the tour, and everybody knew that. So even when they were on tour with Megadeth, with Steve fronting the band, they were in look for a singer mode, but maybe not too deep into it. And yeah, Rob was there. Rob was available, and I've heard the same stories that you heard firsthand. It sounds like that Steve was never going to be the guy. Rob was available. He was there. They knew him. And look, let's be honest. The hang and getting along with people and just, being present is just, Steve didn't want to or couldn't be present. Steve Esquivel didn't want to do it permanently. And you had Rob, who was there, who was present, who got along with them and wanted the job. So just, right place, right time is a thing. And let me just say, like, people are giving all kinds of opinions today. But if I'm a veteran band, like Exodus are, and I'm making a singer change, which is not an easy thing to do, I don't blame Exodus for going back to a known commodity, a commodity they know personally, but also the fan base knows personally, versus a complete unknown is going to come sing for Exodus now. I actually think if they had, gone that route with a guy like Steve Esquivel at the time that nobody really knew outside of a certain area, Exodus would be over. I think if you're not going to have Steve Souza in the band right now, I think the only way you can perpetuate any modicum of success is to bring Rob back, because otherwise, I just don't think fans are going to invest in another new singer.
I mean, that could work for them. It could work against them, right? Because I don't know if it was when Rob came out with his music. I guess in a way, the band was not at their peak anymore, right? They're sort of below their peak. However, most bands were, right? 90s and 2000s.
It was a tough time.
Like, it was a really tough time. So was he a victim of the tough times of the Blaze Bayley era, the Tim Ripper Owens and Judas Priest era? There were really tough times. The market was really soft for metal music, and they went to the harder core, just like Testament went harder with the death metal vocals and the more harsh stuff. So did they. So I'm interested to see if it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little more cleaner, rougher, not as aggressive as it was, when he did his albums.
Well, yeah, actually, sorry to Perrin, I don't mean to cut you off if you were going,
go.
I think I got a couple of thoughts on that. First is Generation Kill, which is Rob Duke's band that he did aside from Exodus. And by the way, as of an hour ago on Wikipedia, Generation Kill still says, current. It's not done. So who knows the future of Generation Kill? But that's a very heavy band. That band is almost hardcore band. That's Rob Duke's vocal style. I don't see him going back and doing gentler stuff. Like I don't see them doing Pink Floyd covers with him on the lead, on microphone. I was going to say that I think Exodus to me, and I'm going to maybe forgive me if I'm giving Gary Holt more credit than some of the other guys in the band deserve. I think it's his riffs and his stuff. I think that leads a lot of the songwriting and what the songs are going to sound like. So, and he's a master riff master. I mean, he just comes out, he cranks these fantastic riffs out. I think that's going to dictate more than anything else. But I mean, Jimmy, you're not wrong. I mean, they can't. Not that they ever went soft with Zetro at all or Bailoff, but I mean, they can't do a gentler. I've never heard a gentler side of Rob.
Well, for me, I got to say that I always enjoyed the Zetro era. I don't even like the Bailoff era. And I never really got into the Dukes era. It was hard for me, maybe because the music at that time just didn't speak to me. But I'm curious. Maybe this time around, they're going to go another way, a bulb just fell off the Christmas tree as we. Did you hear that?
Yeah, and I agreed. It wasn't my favorite era, but I'm open-minded to this. I guess The thing that's tough for me is I just saw this band play live 2 months ago, and they were amazing. They played great new songs or newer songs from their last album. They went really deep into the catalog. They played Deamphetamine, like Rob material. Like it was an all-encompassing set list. They were great. I completely agree with Jack, though, that, Exodus is Gary's vehicle. And if it's not just Gary's vehicle, because obviously Tom is a big part of it too, the other than the voice, the definitive artists now, but it's that crunch that really makes, Exodus one of the definitive Bay Area thrash bands and the pioneers of that sound and back and forth.
Parrot, let me ask you this. When you saw them last, I didn't see them on the last tour when they headlined. I saw them one before that with Testament. I know in Montreal it was fine, right? There was a lot of people in Montreal, but what were the sales like around North America?
Yeah, so that's where I'm going to speculate a bit. So, Montreal's a metal city, and again, I was even told they thought this was the best show on the tour because they sold out a 950 person venue easily, and did a hell of a great night at merch. And this was a great show. But I know just in Boston, not far from here, they downgraded to a smaller venue, and I just know, look, it's a tough touring market. We all know that. So I know this last tour did so business, and that's being maybe a bit generous. And when you're a bunch of men, in your, late 50s and 60s, touring around in not luxury vehicles and accommodations in November in the Northeast and playing half-sold shows in smaller venues, it's not the most pleasant environment. So, and I don't know, I think we're all speculating. Okay, the press release reads like Steve was fired. So, do we agree with that, guys? It reads as if he was.
Well, I mean, I've interviewed Steve. This guy's a firecracker, right? This guy just speaks his mind.
Gary's
there also was a political divide in the band. I know that. The elections just happened. I mean, I could speculate on a lot of things. I know System of the Down is split down the middle in terms of a band.
But I guess that's my point, right? You're touring. It's uncomfortable. It's cold. The shows are so. And maybe sometimes that magnifies issues that exist between band members, be it political, be it money, or be it whatever. So, like I said, good for them for being pros, because I definitely didn't see it at the show I was at. Is it stuff that happened on the tour? It could also have been they got back from the tour, and Gary was like, okay, for all we know, Gary has stuff coming up with Slayer, and he said, okay, my window to do stuff with that.
Actually,
this. And Steve said, well, I can't do that, and that. So, maybe it's about stuff that happened on tour. Maybe it's about schedules. Maybe it's about political ideology. It could be about a lot of things, So I guess the story, I'm sure we'll hear
the Slayer thing didn't play too much into it, right? I mean, maybe it was sort of like another brick.
Well,
it added to it.
Slayer has said that they're going to play 10 festival dates a year, and that'll be cash cow for that band, and Gary also, I would think. But we don't know what's going to be announced for Slayer for the next 2 years. We know there probably won't be a record, but there could be some touring and festivals, and again, maybe they couldn't align on schedules. And like you said, Steve is a firecracker, very outgoing guy. Gary is a really smart guy, but can get under people's skin. There's characters in that band. There's strong personalities in that band.
Here's a bit of trivia.
Strong personality too.
Here's a bit of trivia. Who knows this? Anybody watching or you guys? Why is Steve's nickname Zetro? Why was he called Zetro?
I don't remember.
Yeah, he said this. I don't remember. I'm not gonna.
Does anybody else? It's trivia week, isn't it? Does anybody know? I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it says. I know the answer, but I'll tell you what it says on Wikipedia. Comes from a cartoon whale he saw in high school. That's what
I can change the answer on Wikipedia if I wanted to.
But I got to tell you something. That's
kind of a letdown.
Because I actually watched my interview I did with him, and I asked him this question. And this is right from him now. It's recorded. You can see it. It was because he was on acid at 14 years old, and he was at some sort of light as they were waiting for it to change, and he kept saying Zet. I guess he was just doing it the whole night, and then his friends tell him the next day, you've been saying Zet all night. And somebody thought his name was Jethro, so then it was Zetro. That's the long and short of it. Yeah. So that's what it is. But Wikipedia is wrong.
Yeah, you got to update Wikipedia.
Yeah, so there was a... Go ahead. Sorry, Jack.
No, I just to tag on to what you guys were saying, when I talked to Rob Dukes, or actually it was the interview with he and Zetro, I love that they talked about how Gary Holt, like Rob Duke said he would sometimes say stuff on stage, like make an off-color joke. And he said both of them talked about how they'd look over and Gary Holt would like be giving them like the disappointed stepfather look. That's what they both said. So I know, but they both said it affectionately. So and you got to think, I mean, you look at what just happened with Perry Farrell and Jane's Addiction, you think like,
Mhm.
gosh, these guys are too old for that kind of nonsense. But then you see, and I'm not making fun of the Perry Farrell situation, that sucked, but like that kind of thing does happen. Maybe, I think we got to wait for Zetro's press release. He's got to say something. And you're right, he can't not say something. That's his personality. He's going to come out and say something. So I think that'll be
Oh
very
yeah, yeah. We're
revealing.
all waiting for that one, I guess. But Rob Dukes did make a small little post. He said, "Pretty stoked to be back singing about Satan and the horrors of the world with my boys again." Gary Holt, at Gary Holt official. So there you go.
Why
So
wouldn't
he
Rob
actually
be
made a
happy,
short.
right? Obviously Exodus has been the band he's been in with the most notoriety. It's the band that took him from being the guitar tech to the singer. Again, that wasn't the biggest period of Exodus's success, but they were still on tours and they were still on festivals. And this is going to be an opportunity for Rob to get out in front of bigger audiences again. And look, Exodus does have I'm really interested to see how this goes, because Exodus has built some goodwill with the last, Blood In, Blood Out was pretty well received. Persona Non Grata was very well received. They've been in a lot of festivals. They've been in a lot of tours. So, Exodus's next album would just naturally be something that metal and thrash metal fans would be highly anticipating. And now, is it as highly anticipated, or is it anticipated for a different reason? Like, so it's just interesting. But Rob should be happy because he's back with a great band that I think has been doing decent business, all things considered. And I guess it's an opportunity. Right?
As much as I'd like to give Rob the opportunity, and I'm excited to listen to what he's going to do. I would have liked them to have somebody else, but I could understand that they have this brand, and they might want to go to their network before they go out to the mainstream to ask to look for a new singer. It's tough looking for a new singer or a new bandmate. There's like, if you ask the mainstream, or if you ask somebody online, or if you make a post online about it, you get like 10,000 applications, but then you'll end up going with somebody in the end anyways, right? That's how usually it works. So I would have liked like a Neil Turbin, maybe would have been cool, right? Like that would have been a good fit. But
Yeah.
you know what? I'm excited for Rob Dukes. I'll give him a chance. Here's some funny comments. John Leon is saying this will put a kick in the band. Yes, that will put a kick in the band. And Rob
Jimmy,
says,
wait a second. I just want to say, so I've read a lot of comments today saying, good, Rob is back. They're going to be like heavy again or heavier. I'm like, okay, Exodus was ever not heavy. It's like there's been no ballads. Okay, A Good Day to Die, a couple little songs I guess you could say is a bit slower, but like there's no ballad. So we're just talking very heavy
Degrees.
and heavier than very heavy. So so I just find it funny when people kind of say that, the balls are back in the band. Like Exodus never had no balls. Exodus has never been like
Perrin, it's interesting what you're saying, but I think that there was a timing factor with Dukes. Dukes' music is more suitable for today. It's more accepted today versus when it was released back in the day. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. Somebody said, Sue's in, Sue's out.
That's
Rusty is saying, I know, I hate Dukes. Cookie Monster vocals, Steve Zetro will always be the voice of Exodus. And, I think that is the leading opinion, but there are a lot of Rob Dukes fans too who want that heaviness. They want it back in the band for some reason.
The comments I've seen, I'd say, have been 2/3 pro Zetro and 1/3 cool Rob is back, which isn't bad. I mean, when a classic singer leaves a band, it's not like everyone is, I think it's fair. I think that's a fair split.
Yeah. I think they should have gone with Gary Cherone. That's my opinion. He should have
Yeah,
been a new
I like
singer.
that.
Then somebody said, Bobby Blotzer Exodus experience coming soon. Okay, that's a cheap shot. The band has a lot of history. I don't know about that. I've interviewed look, I've interviewed these guys many times, and this is what I get out of all these interviews, that this is a band that's always sort of on the edge. It's always on the edge of chaos in a way, right? But they're keeping it together. And from the beginning, from the origins of the band to today, it's always been like that. Like Zetro's in, he's out. You know, this guy's in, he's out. They're changing band members, and the music has always had a good quality. It's always been at a high level, if you ask me. So it'd be really, again, it'll be really interesting to see. But this is how the band has always been: people coming in, coming out, revolving door.
Well, but they've been stable for a while now, right? I mean, look, Gary's the constant. They've really only had two guitarists like in their recording career, like Rick Hunolt and then Lee Altus. Oh, that was a little controversial back when Rick left the band, but everything's cool now. Bass players has been a little bit more of a revolving door, but Jack Gibson's been there for a while. Drummers, you know, there was Tom Hunting was there, and then there was Bostaff, and there was Tempesta for a while, but then back to Hunting for a long time now. So look, since 2014, they've been pretty stable, which a decade in this day and age of having a stable lineup is a lot.
Just saying Zetro left 3 times. That's all I'm saying.
Well, no, see, Jimmy, people are saying that. So
the band broke up.
The first time the band just went on hiatus, right? Because metal had completely changed. So I think it was, 92 to 2004, they were just on a hiatus. So he didn't really leave. The band wasn't active.
But he didn't come back.
Then he did leave after they recorded Temple of the Damned, and that was a sore spot because, you know, he had to do that for his family, but it was a sore spot because they released a really good album, and things didn't go as well as they could have on the tour because they had a replacement singer who wasn't even permanent. Then they got him back, and they moved up the festival bill for Blood In, Blood Out. So this is the first time he's been fired, I guess. So one time they went on.
Well, wait. We don't know he's been fired. We don't know he's been fired, Perrin. You're assuming this.
He might have.
Reading the press release, to me, it sounds like he was fired.
To me, it sounds like they had a big fight, and one guy said "screw you," and the other guy said "screw you too," and they just broke up. But we don't know this. We don't know. Zetro could have had for all we know, they're sick. I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying we don't know. We have no idea.
I actually didn't get either of those reads. I just kind of thought, it might be more like the way he left the first time. Like, you know what? I'm getting old and getting tired. And like parents said, like, they may be saying, like, I'm not getting a return on investment here, really. I want to, although I do want to ask, because I want to ask both of you guys. So they're in this album, unlike the first time Rob joined. When Rob joined the first time, they had nothing written for Shovelhead, the Shovelhead album. They had nothing. So they had to start from scratch. It sounds like this album's already underway, so I wonder if there's going to be Zetro songs like on this album.
That's what happened with Blood In, Blood Out.
I had read a few weeks ago, Jack. You're right. I thought I had read a few weeks ago that they were getting ready to go back into the studio. You know, so that's weird.
I mean, maybe Steve didn't like the music that was, being written at the time. I don't know. Listen, we'll find out more about this. We're just speculating right now, but the band does have a history of imploding in a way, right?
Like Anthrax. I mean, it's not that uncommon in thrash circles. Even a band Overkill's been stable for like 20 years now, but they had a lot of turnover. It just seems to be a thing in bands or stuff, or certainly thrash bands. Like Anthrax is as chaotic as Exodus, at least.
Intense music equals intense.
Exactly, intense music, intense people, and that's why the music's so great, because there's a certain intensity to it. And you know what? Playing at that level of that intensity, not everybody can last, right? You get tired, you get exhausted, your body gives out. You get tired, and it's not mainstream enough. Only Metallica's managed to become these global monsters in thrash, right? So you're always going to play the theaters or the clubs, and how long can you do that for, right? It's not easy. It's not easy. On that note, guys, you have any closing remarks?
Tune in this weekend for part 2. I guess maybe we'll hear Zetro's comments tomorrow or Friday, and
or maybe an hour from now.
Maybe we'll do this together again on Sunday to talk about the shorts. Join us again for the ongoing saga of Exodus.
I'll say my closing remark. I'll say check out the interview Rich Catino and I did, but definitely check out also the interview that Rob Dukes did with Zetro. Is really illuminating. Both of them were. I'm looking for. Rob Dukes. He's a good guy. I'm hoping for the best for them. I'm hoping for you to see them have huge success. I mean, this could be an incredible story if the next album is like a masterpiece. Like it could be a great story. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, and like
Give it
Paris,
a
I'm looking
chance.
forward.
You know what?
Yeah.
Like it, don't like it. It's their decision. People need to be able to get along. Give it a chance because they're a great band.
I'll leave you on this. Actually, I was listening to the interview I did with Zetro years ago, and he always enjoyed singing the Paul Bailoff era or the Rob Dukes era. He never had an issue singing that stuff. He always enjoyed it. He didn't even know Rob, when after, I guess, his tenure, or not his tenure, but his time in the band, he didn't even meet him till later on, right? They invited him on stage. There was never this mad attitude towards Rob Dukes. And so I think this is either a Zetro decision or a band against Zetro decision. So I don't think this had nothing to do with Rob Dukes. I mean, he's just coming in because he was offered a job, just like Zetro was offered his job back for Blood In, Blood Out. So on that note, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Perrin, and thanks, Jack, for participating